Yo, yo. 1 2 1 2 1 2. Check 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 1 2 1 2. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Hey, getting the feed there. Yeah, I'm seeing it. Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
I don't know why it wouldn't be. It's showing up down there, yeah. It was working all day. Why is it not working right now? Test one, two, test one, two. Whole time. I don't hear it at all. Let's check it right now. No, it's still not. Well, I can see right here. It's coming up, but I just tried this one. I didn't see it either. But I went there. It was working.
Check, check 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2.
I mean, they were down when we were testing them earlier. Let's try turning them up again. Well, that's just gonna pick up every. Yeah.
Mic check, 1, 2.
It was. So is I don't know what this was doing differently.
Can you throw it on a different? Is that on the wrong side? Oh, it's on the input. Mic check. Mic check. You good?
Oh, we're live. I think we gotta probably something gotta come down. Or okay, you want me to go? Check 1, 2. Oh, it's Jameer. Yeah, check 1, 2. I think it was your audio feed. I'm gonna right now. 1, 2, 1, 2. Sounds hollow. Sounds hollow. Check 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, it's good. Check. 1, 2, 1, 2. It's fine over there. We'll be fine.
There's only two zones, so I can just turn it up more here. So like there's this first half of the room and the second half of the room.
This one was lower. It was lower.
It was low. It was low.
That's why I was feeling
Try it right now.
Let's take one more minute. Let's take one more minute. I know. Vert, something feels off. Yeah, exactly.
As long as we don't gotta like yell.
Exactly. Same here. Ty, it might be better if we just go room it. It might be better if we just like speak, project our voices in the room.
It's just for we got audio captured in a different way. We're good. We're gonna keep the microphone.
No, but the
going.
mic sounds a little bit.
Did I fix it though? Can you give it a try?
1, 2, 1, 2.
Get everybody quiet down in the mic check.
I'll go through my intro, and then just we'll do that. Hey fellas, you guys don't necessarily have to sit yet because the girls gonna do a breathwork workshop. So if you guys want to just chill for now and then or just post up over here. All right, y'all. Yo. Hey, how's this? Does this sound worse? They're all like, it sounds worse with the mic. Okay. All right. We're gonna try to get this right. Cause I'm way down here. Vert, you might have to go and thug it out with him over here. Let me see. Check 1, 2. Am I mic 1 here?
Yeah, you might want. I'm trying to turn it down over here and turn it up over here. But that's what I was finding worked earlier. But
Check 1, 2, 1, 2. Check 1, 2, 1.
Yeah, let's just go.
always has. But we forget how to use it. So let's do a little test right now. I want to invite you all to close your eyes for just a second. Take a deep breath in without thinking. Take note of what rose. Was it your chest or your belly? Now, for most of us, would you say it was your chest?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's called paradoxical breathing. Sounds fancy, right? It means you're breathing wrong.
Yes.
You're breathing in reverse. But we weren't born that way, right? So if you ever notice like a baby or an animal breathe, you'll notice that their bellies rise and fall. So what happened? Trauma, stress, anxiety, hustle culture, always on the go, never time for stillness, right? So we forget how to breathe. That's what happens. And hold on guys. Somewhere along the line, we just forget. We carry so much. Life throws us shit all the time. It's heavy. Whether we're ready for it or we're not, right? We gotta take it day by day, no matter what. So breathwork is a tool, it's a modality that we can use on the fly. It's immediate, it's effective, and it works. It's not questionable. This isn't like a therapy session where it might take months or years to figure out what's the root cause. Why are you feeling anxious? Why are you feeling depressed? Right? It's not a podcast that you're gonna forget tomorrow. It works every single time, right? That's why I love it, because we live in such a fast-paced microwave society that we need effective things to happen right away, right? We want results, we want them now. And that's why I love breathwork. So, and it's our birthright, right? It lives inside of us, we're born with it. The first thing that we have when we come into this world, and it's the last thing we have when we leave. So, let's zoom out for a second, and I wanna explain the cycle of breath and how connected we are without even knowing, right? So every time we exhale, we release a chemical called carbon dioxide. It's the shit we don't need, right? The earth filters it through the trees and returns it back to us in the form of oxygen. So you see, the cycle of breath literally proves that we are separate from nothing. Like, it's our direct line to earth. It's our direct line to our consciousness, and it's our direct line to each other. It means oneness. So, let's see. Okay, so I want to show you guys a quick little breathing technique that you can take with you and do it anywhere. You can do it in the car, you can do it at the gym, you can do it while you're walking down the street, you can do it while you're lying down in bed. It's used by Navy SEALs, top CEOs. It's called box breathing. Anybody ever hear of it? Okay. So we're gonna practice together just a couple rounds so we can all get connected through our breath before you guys get this party started. Sound good?
Yeah.
Can I invite you all to
Let's do it.
Close your eyes while we do this so we can get like connected to our higher selves. Yeah? All right, perfect. So just take a second here. Think of a box. We're gonna do an inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4, hold out for 4. Okay, so box. We're gonna start now. Take a deep inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. So do that 4 rounds in your own pace, right? Finish your 4 rounds. I know it's just a quick couple seconds, but how do you all feel? So thank you all for sharing your breath with me today. I'm gonna turn it back over to Chachi.
Thank you, Megan. I'd like to invite our panelists to join us, please. Oh man, I don't even think you guys need the mic still. Check. I don't think magic's gonna happen. Can we please have a round of applause? How does it feel to be named the most handsome man in the world? All right, so Plus keeps reminding me because I'm nervous. So this makes me more nervous. I know, just in case looking at me, well. Situations like this make me more nervous because I'm like here sitting in front of four men who I just absolutely love, admire, have mad respect for, and I personally reached out to like be a part of this and have relations with. Plus, it's like, hey, you're just having a conversation with your friends. I'm like, yeah, I know, but it still has to be right. So I'm trying not to put pressure on me. I'm also trying not to put pressure on you. And I did when I first invited you. It was like, hey, it's gonna be light. Please feel free to share. So as I call you by the name I know you as, could you please just introduce yourself by the name that you prefer today, and then maybe just share the titles that you're proud to carry, both personally and professionally, right? So let's work our way down and start with Brother Hope.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is name's Harrison Grigsby. You can call me Hope. I'm a father. I'm also a founding executive director of Hope Scholars Initiative, which is a 501c3 using hip hop as a gateway to engage youth and develop social emotional awareness. We primarily work with justice-involved youth. I'm also a dad. Did I say I was a father? Did I say that?
Yeah, you said yeah, bro. That's right.
To two beautiful children, Hope and Aria, and born and raised in Providence, West African descent, Liberian and Sierra Leonean. I'm excited to be here, really. I think for me, I'm really looking forward to the fellowship, the conversation. These are the gentlemen on this panel I all have personal relationships with, and it's always good to connect with them. Yeah, that's what I got for you right now, and I'm excited to partake in this.
Clap it up for Hope.
So my name is Carlin Howard. I'm not originally from Providence. I was born and raised in Georgia, moved up here about 15 years ago, and I've loved it ever since. Like I feel like people come to Rhode Island and they don't really tap in like that, then they're out. But I came here and I stayed. I got roots down here. I got kids and everything, right? And so the titles that I love is being a father, being a partner. Chachi said coach. I'm a coach as well, and I worked with a number of people in this space before. On top of that, a son, family member, I can go down the list. A lot of people know me for the work that I've done with an organization called the Equity Institute. And so we recruit and support folks from non-traditional backgrounds to become teachers in our schools across the state. Myself, before I started running the nonprofit I run and doing the work that I do as a coach, I was also a classroom teacher. I used to work at Roger Williams Middle School. I worked at Pleasant View Elementary School. I worked at Blackstone Valley Prep Charter School. So I've worked at a number of different schools across the city and this area. And I've always been interested in how do we actually maximize the potential of our folks? How do we help people level up and get to the next level?
been a YouTuber now for almost 10 years, like about 9.5 years now. Podcaster, started a podcast about 3 years ago, Rhode Island, and also a father as well. My son turns 2 weeks, 4 years old, which is pretty crazy to say out loud. Time flying by. And yeah, just a content creator, journalist, commentator, really just, a Providence, born and raised man, Dominican, both parents Dominican, immigrant parents. So everything I've done, especially when it comes to college, high school, has been like first generation. So it's been an honor to actually fulfill that and carry on the actual family name in a positive light. And yeah, man, a constant content creator. I feel like everything I do, I can find some creation in it, content in it, and create the content in the daily life, especially informative. Sharing experiences, things that I learn, things I see, things that I find interesting. People tend to find interesting themselves. And out here, I feel like we have a plethora of stuff. So I'm always willing and open to platforming the things that happen in, the smallest state. Because I feel like a lot of times people take that as a negative when it's really a positive. If you go to New York, you go to LA, these other bigger cities, bigger states, everyone is trying to do the same thing. It's like you're trying to and if you run into people doing the same thing in this big city, it's gonna be harder for you to stand out. But out here, you can become that big fish in like a small pond. So I'm always embracing that mentality. So yeah, born and raised here, proud Rhode Islander, and that's me. And also when I had John Hope, you forgot to mention, but he's I'll say it for him. He's one of the most legendary and best rappers. I'm the one he lifted up. You were literally the soundtrack to
The soundtrack to the whole campaign.
Hope don't need no microphone.
Let's go. Ian?
My name is Ian Travis Barnard. I'm a photographer and director, producer, and more recently added executive director to my list of titles for an organization called Legacy Collective RI, which is focused around trying to create skills-based training to engage in storytelling and content creation, trying to give access so that more people can play in this game, because it can be expensive and hard to get into, and without having to pay a ton in film school, you can come by and learn how to get engaged in the industry. And then father as well, and husband. And I'm trying to improve this title because it wasn't always easy for me, but to be a better friend, because I didn't think I always was the best friend. So that's something else I'm trying to work on.
One immediate line of connection, right, is this experience of fatherhood. Yeah. And I had a brief conversation with the fellas earlier when I was trying to change about an experience I had today, where in the morning I woke up and my two grandbabies were there, and I was so gentle, and they were spazzing out, losing it. My granddaughter was throwing herself on the ground, and I was so gentle. Let's go outside and water the flowers. Right? It'll be okay. And then in the afternoon, I came back home to my sons, 13 and 12, and I'm like, yo, what's up? Chilling, Xbox, house is a mess. I'm like, yo, your mother's gonna be here in an hour. Do your chores. I'm spazzing on them, right? And so this concept is all things. I've been carrying this anger as a father. You know what I'm saying? When it comes because of partially because of fear for them. But then I also have this experience today, in the same day, of this softness that's also parenting with my grandkids. And I want to be more of that and less of that, but I also understand that there's a lot of conditioning that I have that needs to be shampooed. You know what I mean? And so a lot of, sometimes with panel discussions like this, it starts kind of light, but I figure that, as an extension of the introduction, I would love to get your thoughts on something kind of heavy, right? Because men are known to carry weight in silence. Grief, fatherhood, right? Being a role model, just pressure to have it all together. Please, if you guys could each be brief, but what's something that you've carried or carry
And how did or do you put it down, even if it's just temporarily? I know, take a second. I know it's heavy, right?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so what's something that you've carried or that you still carry, and how do you put it down, even if it's just temporarily?
For me, I think that there's this subconscious effort for me to be the best dad and be present. You know, I co-parent, and they're two separate situations that, you know, present, you know, themselves in certain ways. And because I was in foster care, I'm not, you know, if you know my story or whatever, you know, you know, I had a colorful background growing up, and you know, all the tropes that sort of are stereotypes that, you know, for someone like myself that comes from a certain background, I check off, and so I vowed that I was going to be, you know, the best dad that I could be, no matter what the circumstances. And I adhered to that, but I'm realizing maybe there's some, you know, it's related to some trauma, some core wounds, because my hypervigilance tends to be exhaustive, and I don't give myself enough grace as a dad that I'm here, because I'm relating everything back to what I experienced. You know, my dad wasn't around, and so, you know, I gotta be there. And so when there are times when I'm not there, because, you know, in a very honest way, the amount of guilt that comes over me is like immense, and I have to try to put that down and reconcile and understand that the human aspect of, you know, parenthood that we all go through, men and women, is real. So yeah, that hypervigilance is something that I need to, you know, just let go and detach from.
You're just one person.
Just one person.
But you got a cape under that shirt.
Yeah.
Right? I appreciate that. Fellas, anybody else?
Amen.
Yeah, no, that's real. I appreciate you sharing that. On a lighter note, I just was like, man, we all got white shirts.
I know, I wish you guys.
He's the minority. I've been carrying that on. Somebody got to, you know, we got a whole group up here. You know.
Put it down. Put it down.
He gonna be the front singer. You know? You know, on a more serious note, not to trauma dump or anything, but you know, there's a story, and I didn't realize how much it impacted me until my father died 3 years ago. And after my dad died, probably a week or two, I sat down, you know, me and my wife were drinking a little too much drinks, you know what I'm saying? And I started like just journaling, you know what I mean? I started writing and crying and all these other things. I'm like, dang, I shouldn't be drinking and thinking about, you know, my dad's death, you know what I mean? But either way, what it did bring in that moment was a story when I was 8 years old. I will never forget this. Around the time I was 8 years old, my mom had came into the room. I had my younger brother who was 4, and she was frantic. And she was on the phone trying to call up as many people as she knew who knew my dad, who was connected to my dad. For context, my father struggled with drugs, he had an alcohol addiction, and then on top of that, you know, he had mental health things that would often cause him to disappear for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time. He was incarcerated at points in my life. And you know, through all that, my mom is like, she is a Christian woman. She's like, to death do us part. I'm gonna be a ride or die. You know what I'm saying? And so my parents are always together. But this particular day, my mom was like just fed up. She's like, yo, get in the car, get your brother, we're getting in the car, we're gonna look for your dad. And so she went and picked up her friend, and we drove around my little hometown to look for my dad. And we finally, my mom, through her detective skills, women I feel like got the detective skills, she found my dad. He was at this trailer. And when she went to the door, she banged on the door. It was like, yo, get out, your kids are out here. And my dad opened the door. He was obviously inebriated, obviously, you know, on whatever he was on at the time. And in that moment, he told my mom, no, and close the door on her. And you know, as a kid at 8 years old watching that, yo, that is like the ultimate feeling like, dang, he just said no to our family. But that wasn't even the thing that really bothered me the most is when we got home, I had never seen my mom cry up to this point. My mom sat on the toilet and she cried. And she cried for a long period of time. And you know how as a kid you block things out like that, you just try to keep moving. And as I got older, I realized how much that early memory just sat in me. And like everything I was doing was to try to not be like my dad. Towards the end years of my dad's life, we developed a great relationship. We really healed and moved on. But as a kid, we had a very strained relationship. And that was probably one of the earliest memories I remember that really caused that. And you know, as I got to the point of relationships and then eventually being a father, I saw how that showed up in my relationships. I saw how it showed up in particularly my relationship with my kid, my son. And I knew that I couldn't carry that anymore. And even though today that story still sticks with me, like every day I still think about it, I'm not even gonna lie to you. It still plays back in my head. You know, I also now have reframed that same story to say like, you know, had it not been for that, some of the drive that I had, maybe I wouldn't have had it. Maybe some of the things that I wanted to achieve in life, I wouldn't have gone after. You know, there's something called post-traumatic growth, right? Which is a little bit different than post-traumatic stress. And post-traumatic growth is when you take a traumatic experience and you're able to grow from it. Why that happens for some people and it doesn't happen for others, the researchers don't fully know. But I know for me, it seems, and the way I'm looking at it is that, you know, it needed to happen. Like, pain and suffering needed to happen to get me to the point where I'm at today. But even now, like I said, it's something that still shows up on my day-to-day.
I would say something that I carry as a father would definitely be just the concept of the style of father that I was, you know, God put me in a position to be because, you know, growing up, I've always tried to cater myself as like, oh, I want to make my son that doesn't exist proud, and I try to like mature young and stuff. And it's like when it really happens, it's like, you know, especially unplanned. It's like, oh, like you get hit with reality. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, especially, you know, being, well, I was like 20, 21, 22, and it was like, okay, so this is happening. You know, keeping a child, we're gonna go through this. And then it's a beautiful thing, a blessing, but then now, you know, as the child's born and then going to the doctors and then I'm finding out that he has autism, right? So now I gotta be a father, but a father to an autistic child. And then learning what that is, learning that entire world, it's heavy, it's heavy, you know. But I would say thankfully, and not even thankfully because it doesn't matter, I think it's a blessing regardless, but it seems like he's like on the lower spectrum as far as the autistic, you know, the spectrum goes, but it's been a learning process entirely where it's like, you know, your father, but now you're on top of that, you have another layer of like the same way you would be with your child, like if he is getting taken care of by someone else, you're like, oh, you're very protective, but now you're actually protective. Because oh, you have to, you know, if he gets too loud, it's probably his autism. Like, you know, you gotta give them kind of like those notes and, you know, those cues of like how to take care of a said person and this child is because of, you know, something that they can't necessarily control. So that's something I definitely carry, you know, every day. It's wild, but there's beauty in that because it's something that it's a new world, and I get to learn through it through my own experience of it. And I already was very like, you know, non-judgmental with people. I'm very accepting and understanding of everyone because we all have our own journeys and paths and, you know, struggles. But it gives you even another layer of that because now, you know, by default, you're forced to be in a situation where, you know, growing up you might have heard of this term, you know, people might joke around with the term, etc. But now it's like you have this responsibility to educate yourself about the term. What does it mean? and just carry yourself fully in that world of being, you know, like I said, a father of an autistic child. So that's definitely something that I carry. I don't really share so much, but I don't mind talking about it.
I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah.
Appreciate you sharing.
You know, one of the things that was interesting for me is fatherhood, especially like early fatherhood, was easy for me. Easy. Like I took to it. I had a daughter, and it was seamless. Like, and I did a lot of the work early on, like the sleepless nights, all that kind of stuff. Because like, who has dogs and doesn't have kids? You know, no one. All right. Well, I mean, dogs and little kids are the same in that like they're very no, like in the best way. They're pure. Like they're simple. You understand the rule set. You show up and you're loyal and you do the things you need to do, and you watch that growth and they blossom before you, and that bond is created. And the thing that I have been carrying, which has been hard, is like as my child has transitioned into a young adult, you know, you have this perception of who they were, and the simple person that they were goes away and they become an adult. And that's a whole other world, because they have likes and dislikes and fears and all these things, and all of a sudden this simple world of like, I just have to show up and do these things, that goes away, and your requirements and your job as a parent become much more dynamic, much more complicated. And what I found also is like, it was always easy for me to have simple relationships in some cases, and the more complex they got, the more I would shut down. And I'm trying the best I can to learn to be more nuanced and to understand that perception of both her and the relationships that I have to be dynamic, and I have to understand and really appreciate the changes that other people around me are trying to make, and be respectful of that and understanding of that. But it takes time, you know, to evolve, to become a better father as she becomes an adult. Like, I'm having to adjust the way I look at all my relationships. So I'm trying to learn to like carry my perception of like who I think a person is, and let that fade away to understand and take someone in for who they are right now. You know? So that's tough.
It's a difficult space to navigate, you know, when you have, especially for folks that have like multiple layers of types of people that are under their direct care. You know, some of us in this room have either like younger children, some of us have elder parents, some of us have grandchildren, nieces and nephews that are all under our direct care. And it's difficult to be able to create space for you to allow them to be themselves and not be like what you need them to be for you. So the teacher that has 31 kids in their class, right? And they have to adjust, because there's a misconception that the kids need to conform to what the teacher needs, but the reality is the teacher needs to adjust for what the room needs. You know what I mean? So, well, also as this time goes, we're gonna adjust to what the room needs as well. At the end of the conversation, we're going to carve out some space. I got a clock right there that I'm going to keep an eye on to make sure that we allow you guys to like share some thoughts, some reflections, and ask questions of the panelists as well. So I'm like looking forward to that, because it's going to take some pressure off of me. I had a whole plan. Right? I had this whole plan. I was like, I don't know exactly how I'm going to approach this, but just from the introductions, the plan has already changed. All right, so huddled up with Team Chachi over here. But I'm excited just to like expand on some of the things that you guys were talking about, right? Especially about like the relationships. All of you touched on like specific relationships. I'm curious about what messages you received growing up about what it meant to be a man, and how did those messages impact your journey, your relationships, and ultimately your mental health. That's a great question. And I'm just gonna. All right, I'll ask again, right? What messages did you receive growing up about what it means to be a man? Mm-hmm. From whom, if you want to touch on that? How did that impact your journey, your relationships in your life, and ultimately your mental health?
Can I jump out of order?
There's no order. That's what I'm saying. There's no order. So
I mean, like we can kind of like just bop around with it, but like I mean, my father was always extraordinarily capable, but like one of those Tim Allen type dudes that would like fix things and then also break a bone at the same time, and like would just endure pain and always do things, but physical stuff all the time. And like watching him just beat the hell out of himself, but never complain and never, try to do things proactively to be thoughtful to himself and his care. And I would see him do that physically, but I realized he was in some cases doing that emotionally. And it was never taught to me. It was just through perception of like, that's what you do. You just put your head down and you just keep moving forward, which is like a very common thing. It's a little cliched, but like you watch that and you get to that point where you're like, all right, that's just what you do. You just put your head down and move forward. And then you realize later, and I mean, as my father gets older, what you start to notice is like, oh, they're a little slower he's slower than he used to be. Like things are nagging more, and you're like, maybe you should have been a little more proactive. Maybe you should have said more. Maybe you should have done more. And you start thinking like, geez, maybe I should take a different tack on this. That's not exactly the best plan every time, is put the head down and move forward, because that stuff's going to catch up to you. And like I said, it's one of those things you see and you're like, yeah, obviously, but when you're in it, you kind of don't realize it. And you have to take those moments to step back. For me, like that's kind of what being a man was, just be like, endure shit,
Yeah, similar to me. I mean, I remember, instances where I'll have uncles, and my father would sometimes he'll go into that route of like the idea of like don't cry, man up per se, but not as much as I feel like my uncles and people around him would. And that's something that I, even now again going back to being a father, it's something that affects me. Where it's like the characteristics of how you have this relationship with this another young human being, is like you want to put that into them, instill that mindset into them so young, like already, like if they cry or something, especially because they're a child, it's like, oh, don't cry. But it's like, can that be misinterpreted as like, oh, are you trying to kind of mold them to be a stereotypical man, and what does that mean, right? Is this the right way to go about it? Because me now, especially now in this age, being a father, I kind of look back and kind of reflect and have little memories of little small moments. But it's like, damn, these small little moments, they stay in my mind. Like these little memories stay in my mind. When at the time I might have thought they were just like very, minuscule, nothing that mattered. But now it's like, oh, these things really matter. So now as a parent, it makes me even take care more about every single interaction. Like, okay, even if I tell him this, I might think he might not remember this, but this is going to be something that could carry on into the future. He might interpret it differently, so let me make sure that, how I'm handling it is something that, I mean it. What's my intention, how I'm trying to communicate with them, elaborate more. Because I feel like growing up, like there wasn't as much elaboration in the sentiments, like, oh, don't cry. But it's like, why, right? Like, oh, you gotta man up. It's like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean by that? What is being a man? Like, why can't I, be sentimental? Why can't I share my emotions? Why can't we, talk about this stuff, even to you, even though to my father, my uncle, it might seem like it's nothing, but to me it means something. So am I supposed to ignore this feeling? Like this means something, this moves me emotionally. Is this wrong to talk about it? Am I supposed to, move on about it? So I think that's something that it's very serious. It's very serious that we take for granted, those small interactions, especially not just with strangers, but more so the people directly in your circle, your friends and your family that you grow up with, especially when you're a father. Like that's something that's it's real. It's really real.
This is a shameless plug, but I did a TED Talk actually on this question, so if you guys want to check out my full response. Check it out. But one of the things I talk about a lot is, and me and my father, as I mentioned, had a strained relationship. We had moments of joy, moments of happiness, moments of love, but we also had moments that were just very challenging. And my mom was definitely that person though, who's my biggest cheerleader. Right? She's the person who made me look in the mirror and say, I am somebody. She'll come up to me randomly throughout the day and say, who's the most important person you know? And I have to say, I am. So she made sure that I had a healthy self-concept. And I had a deep understanding of who I was, and that I had a lot of pride in who I was. But like I said, if you had to really put my parents together, you got like my mom who's like a church-going, saint Christian woman, my dad who, you know, from the streets, you know, and you get me, right, and my brother. And we have our own things, right? But one of the things I talk about, though, and many of the times I've done my story is this tattoo right here. So when I first started getting tattoos, I got tattoos. Number one, my mom was like, "You can't get on your arms. You don't want nobody to know you got tattoos." I was like, "All right, my bad, mama." And so this was the only tattoo I got on my arm. And so the tattoo says "Pursue excellence." And so the message that I got growing up all the time was like, you got to be excellent. Like, you got to work twice as hard as the next person. You got to go farther. You got to be smarter. Everything you do has to have, every I has to be dotted, every T has to be crossed. You have to be damn near perfect in this world if you want to survive. And so I got this tattoo as a reminder, like, yo, I got to be perfect. I got to do everything perfect. I got to be better than everybody. And there was this period of time where I feel like black excellence was like a big rallying cry. Not to say it was good or bad, but sometimes that can get perverted to the extent that you take it too far, right? And so, you know, a lot of the work that I do, I talk about reactive and creative structures, right? Reactive structures are these ways of being, these habits of thinking, these habits of our lives, where we're always trying to either control, we're trying to protect ourselves, or we're trying to comply with what the world tells us we should be. It's not good or bad, it's just a coping mechanism to make us feel safe. And so oftentimes this ideal of pursuing excellence was my way of protecting myself from the outside world so that I could feel safe, right? And now I'm starting to get into a space in my life where I'm entering what's called a creative structure. That means I'm able to be authentic. It means I'm able to build relationships. It means I'm able to achieve at high levels without sacrificing my purpose, right? And so we always are in this tension between purpose and safety. And for me, it is always asking myself, am I aligning with my purpose? Do I have to be perfect? Do I have to be excellent all the time? The truth is I'm human, so I mess up all the time. And so, you know, those messages did give me a distorted view of what I needed to be in the world. And now I'm getting into a space where I'm saying, all right, I can be creative in this world and accept myself just as I am.
To that TED Talk.
I got you. I got you.
We're gonna send the link to it. If you didn't register, make sure you register before you do it. For me, it's gonna sound, I don't know, funny, but it was hip hop culture that really shaped my perception about manhood. A lot of the people, the young people that I hung around with in my neighborhood growing up, we were all fatherless childs. And so it was this cultural identity, it was this messaging early on, you know, like NOG, be a father to your child, right? It was like a level of integrity that I was getting, you know, from the music that I was consuming. And that was sort of, you know, the foundation for a lot of, you know, my, the way in which I saw the world. And it really sparked a curiosity. You know, I had this like very interesting duality or dichotomy of the way I lived. You know, I was living in housing, but I went to, you know, St. Raphael Academy, and I was able to see models of fatherhood that really, you know, struck a chord. And, you know, I would just have these pockets of experiences and say, all right, this is what I like. And, you know what I mean? And kind of build this sort of archive of, you know, model behavior, you know, so that when it was my turn to just operate in terms of how I would engage other people, you know, I would, you know, reference, you know, my friend TJ's father. He was my coach, you know, Coach Saw, you know, Mike Stevens. You know, these are people that, you know, impacted me in many ways, you know, whether direct or indirectly. And so, you know, in addition to that, like I said, Scarface, you know what I mean? Like, and you know, it sounds trivial, but like that's kind of how I was, you know, really consuming, you know, and adopting how to behave, you know, in terms of, you know, how to navigate and socialize in a way, you know, that I found comfortable.
yeah, I don't know if that sounds,
No, that's
you
not
know,
good.
if that's
That's
depressing or whatever,
No.
but that's just what it was, you know what I'm saying?
No, but what it is though is, it's a profound analysis, right? Because the content that was like shared at that time was largely positive, right?
Right,
When you think
right.
about hip hop back then, when it was consumed by mainstream media, was largely positive, or it just felt like unattainable. We looked at, you know what I mean, like Cool G Rap hanging off the side of
Right.
of a Rolls Royce. None of us could be that.
Yeah, yeah.
So they were all larger than life, but again, diving into the content was like an opportunity to learn,
Right.
which is kind of scary for what mainstream
Right.
music industry pushes now,
Yeah.
and what's being learned and consumed, right? So, but powerful, bro.
Yeah, and so, you know, that was the foundation until I started really getting into that space of creative structure, and understanding my value and what I'm able to offer, and so I recognized the conditioning, you know, the blind spots and sort of the negative byproduct of some of that conditioning, and I was able to, you know, recognize that maybe, you know, in some aspects I was toxic, or recognize that this was sort of undesirable behavior, and I'm still in that mode, you know, and I'm okay with that. But yeah, you know, I think growing up, that was how I was carving out my niche through the music and the culture that I would consume, but also the near and far-sighted mentorship that I was really like intentional about. You know, I really value to this day my curiosity. I think that was a strong skill set for myself. I knew that beyond the confines of where I came from, like there was so much more, because I had like glimpses, you know, and I had and that was all I needed. And that kind of really shaped, you know, how I see the world, and till this day.
Well, on behalf of the world,
Yeah.
I want to thank you, because not only did you like recognize that, but you also still share that, right? You share a continuation of what you were given back then for so many folks, for so many young people, and across multiple generations. Right, so as a fan of you and your music, thank you for being so honest in your music and for being able to like share, because we need it. So I appreciate it. I got a quick one that doesn't even need explanation if you don't want to give an explanation, right? Because I felt, you know what I mean, just in doing this, right? Because I hit up Hus, I was like, yo, what's up, man? We gotta do more, right? Because I was telling you that day, and I'm like, he pulled me in to do this challenge I didn't think I could do. Said we gotta do more, and like, let's run with it. And then I felt the way, I was like, damn, hold on, we gotta talk about emotions. That doesn't feel good, right? Just the thought of talking about emotions doesn't feel good. Every time my wife is like, yeah, we need to carve out some time to have a talk, I'm like, no, thank you. But I'm curious, for y'all, where do you feel most emotionally safe? Where do you feel most emotionally? You don't have to explain. You can just say, "Hey, McDonald's." But where do you feel most emotionally safe?
When I'm alone, you know, at home, or what, you know, I'm good in isolation. I don't know if that's like I know how to be alone. You know? You know what I'm saying? Like so I process, you know, that's just kind of, you know.
I feel the same. You get the contradiction though, right?
Anybody else connect with that out there? Leave me alone. We'll figure it out. I appreciate that. Anybody else?
No mask. Mask off.
You guys did, you know, talking about the Murph, like for me, the connectivity of activity, physical activity, and struggle that is a place where I feel very safe, because it's a place where you can be emotional, it can be hard, there's struggle, and there's physical struggle, but you sometimes can let emotion out in that space, and it's very much accepted, because it is, whether it's in sport or things like that, like, it is understood you're putting everything into it. And you can release a lot in that space, stuff that you're carrying in other places. And I don't always think it's necessarily the best thing to always release all that stuff there, but to me it feels safe. It's a good balance to, you know, when I'm trying to connect as well. If I didn't have that, I don't know how I can balance the other stuff.
Anybody else?
Oh, safe. What's the question? The place.
Where do you feel emotionally safe?
I would say the safest. Two instances. It'll be by default, always, you know, thankfully, it's like when I'm in bed with my girl or my son, like we're just chilling, and it's like, it feels like that's like, I have moments, and especially it's weird, because like, I have so many aspirations and goals, but at times I feel like, wow, like, is this what success is? Like, people all want to reach all this stuff, I'm like, I feel like I already kind of obtained that. So I have moments of just accepting that and like, basking in that like energy, which at first it feels like sometimes, oh, it's too good to be true, you know. I don't know what it is. It's like sometimes you want to fight off that feeling of that safety. Like, is it too safe? It's like, oh, if it's safe consistently too often, maybe it's because something unsafe is going to come or emerge. But I love that those moments, especially the moments I realize that and accept that. But separate from that, there are instances of being alone, like Hope said, like, you know. I cherish that as well, especially because I'm very, I dive deep and really care deeply about things that are actually worldly, affecting the world, affecting my community, day-to-day things, local politics, things of that nature that really like are like, take over my mind. So when I'm ever able to like be alone and kind of disconnect, you know, throw on Love Island, like do brain rot stuff that, watch some stuff that literally is like the complete opposite of everything I'm truly passionate about. It helps me like disconnect, because I don't, you know, I only drink and whenever it's like a special occasion, like if someone wants to, you know, pass out shots, but I really don't partake in drinking. I never smoked a day in my life, so I don't have any, you know, anything that I do aside from that. So I'll find my, you know, warmth in myself in consuming something that might be, you know, nonsensical or just brain rot, the kids call it nowadays. That type of content that's like, you know, it's entertainment, you know, and I've created my own form of that when it comes to comedic style of things that I've done. So that's something that helps me, you know, feel safe as well whenever I'm alone, to disconnect from that. Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I add is like, you know, Chachi calls me coach. So when we talk about coaching, at least, it's not necessarily about, you know, athletic performance or playing a sport. It's leadership and performance coaching. And so I have a number of leadership and performance coaches that I work with. Some of them are trained as therapists. And what they're really great at is, you know, walking the line between therapy and coaching. And what coaching is about helping someone think about who they want to be, who they've been, and who they want to become, right? And being in those type of spaces, being in a space with another human being who is there just to listen to you and reflect back to you your thoughts, your feelings. That could be a therapist, that could be a coach like myself, that could be a friend, a loved one, whoever. But just being in a space with somebody who can just fully listen to you without judgment is a space where I often feel emotionally safe. And I'm in a space where I can actually share what I'm really thinking and feeling, and not feel like there's some repercussions to me saying the things that I say in my mind out loud.
Do you find it easy to find places where you don't find judgment?
Do I find it easy
like,
to find?
As you navigate the world, and I guess this is something I'm trying to understand as I navigate, which is that like, how much when you are out in the world and dealing with people's perceptions, are you projecting judgment versus actually receiving judgment from others?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's hard to tell the difference.
Yeah. So from a professional standpoint, like if I was in a coaching relationship with someone, right, from a certification and ethical standpoint, you have to create a container where someone feels like, yo, whatever I say in this space is confidential. Whatever I say in this space you hold a judgment on, and your goal is really just to reflect back to me what I'm thinking and feeling, because oftentimes we have this dialogue in our head, you know, I call it the inner critic, and then you also have your inner guide, and then often, you know, the devil and the angel, y'all seen that, right? They're often arguing back and forth, right? And if you ain't got nobody to talk to outside of just yourself, you just have an argument back and forth in your head. That's what causes depression, anxiety, all these things, you know what I mean? And so for me, I know where to look because I've been working in these spaces. So I can find some people in places where, oh yeah, I can talk to this person and feel a certain level of safety. Now, I do want to just name, I don't really believe there's a safe path to greatness. What I mean by that, if you look at Buddhism, you look at Christianity, you look at Judaism, they all talk about suffering. The fact that all these wisdom traditions talk about pain and suffering must mean that there's something about the fact that we're going to suffer in life, and that's a part of it, it's inevitable. And so for me, the judgment part isn't necessarily I guess what I do, at least with myself, is like, I'm okay being vulnerable. I know everybody else ain't in that space though. So my job is oftentimes is to create space so that people can be vulnerable. And then for myself, knowing that, hey, if someone doesn't receive me or have their little tensions, I know when I can create my boundaries and step away. But I try to connect with people where intuitively I know like we have a deeper relationship that we can go somewhere with.
I just want to share. So I had an opportunity to connect. I call him Coach because we had a few coaching sessions right through a professional development opportunity, and it was the first time that I had like a session where it felt like I was receiving some like real therapy that I needed, because we were like talking about some like heavy situations, and it was just a time where I had just a lot of doubts about myself. I was experiencing just, you know what I mean, just these walls that I create for myself that a lot of us do. And you walked me through it, and there's been times where I've actively sought out like professional help, like therapy, when I've had so many struggles over the years, so many challenges with mental health. It was like the first time I had a panic attack. I was young, I thought it was weed. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on, right? And then it just set me on a whirlwind, and I didn't know how to deal with it, and I didn't have anybody that I could talk to. So when I've actively sought out therapists, it's always been like, oh yeah, hey, here's something, you try breathing into this bag. I've never found something I could connect with like I connected with you, and it was professional development, right? It wasn't therapy. So the question I ask is, because Huss does check-ins. Huss called me in the morning, a text, top of the top, what's good? Yeah. How you feeling today, right? Same, right? Yeah. You call and check in every once in a while, right? And I started doing it to just check, yo, what's up? How you doing? My nephew Kingston, all the time. The chachi, I found some video of you freestyling for 11 minutes from 16 years ago. Right? And so those check-ins are therapy sessions, right? So how can we create spaces where it's safe for us to show up for each other without shame? Because it's hard to, you know what I mean? It's hard to share. Like, yo, it's hard for me to pick up a phone and call and be like, you know, except for Vert. Vert's everybody's always heard, yo, Vert, man. You know, so how do we create those spaces? I feel like this is one of those spaces. I feel like the Murph Challenge, like you're creating those spaces right now. You know what I'm saying? So how can we do it in a way where it's accessible and, you know?
I mean, I would say a couple things. First, you know, we have to remove the taboo from those types of conversations and those types of behaviors. You know what I mean? I don't know, you know, on TikTok, there's a funny, you know, prank where, you know, men, good night. Right? You call your man and you tell him good night. And it's like the funniest thing, like, what? Like completely disrespectful. And while it's in jest and very jovial, you know, the real thing is like we need to normalize that type of conversation or that type of those types of gestures, and not think that it's it's a form of weakness or what have you. So remove taboo, remove ego, right? You know, if you want to check in, you know, even if maybe you haven't talked to that person in a long time, you know what I mean? You know, I'm on the 4th floor, you know what I'm saying? In age, right? And so, you know, I look at, listen, man, you know, the second half of my life. So I start to see, you know, my parents, I mean, my mother, you know, my loved ones, mortality is real, right? Mortality is real. And so, you know, you gotta remove the ego and be like, man, you know what, man, how are you? You know what I mean? So there's a radical acceptance that goes with like creating the space and creating that dynamic that, listen, this person is who they are. We ain't trying to change them, but yo, just be consistent. You know, how are you? How you doing? You know what I mean? Checking in, top of the top. And so, you know, slowly but surely, you know, starts out as seed planting moments, but you start to normalize that. You know what I mean? So that's for me, that's sort of my, you know, playbook. Removing ego, remove taboo from those conversations, and you know, don't manage your expectations as well, because part of giving grace and that radical acceptance is like, all right, I'm gonna tap in with this person, but they might not reciprocate the behavior. That's okay, right? Don't personalize. You know what I mean? That's all right. You know, and so, you know. Yeah, stop right there.
So, I mean, in those instances, like, you might do this multiple times and receive nothing.
And receive nothing in
And
return.
then when they really need it, that might be the moment that they're gonna be like, all right, here's how I'm really doing. Because they might just give you the I'm good.
Right.
The head down, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly.
And at one time, they're like, they're on the edge,
Yeah.
and you do it at the right time.
Right.
And they're like, can I meet you for coffee?
Right. And those times, to get to that point, those times that you reach out, is building equity of the
Yeah.
relationship, building trust, right? And so they feel, all right, finally, after 20 times, I'm gonna respond to hope, you know what I'm saying? Right, you know what I mean? So, yeah,
I think
absolutely.
so. Part of like this whole thing, right? You mentioned it, and this was all intent around normalizing situations, right? So, this could be the call to action now. I think if we all put this into practice to like say, hey, when I remember, because sometimes it's hard to establish a routine, but when I remember to like to check in on your people, you know what I'm saying? I think that would be an important thing. If I know for all of us here, if we all knew that everybody left here and they were gonna like check in on somebody, a friend, a family member, somebody you haven't talked to in a while, that resonates, right? The normalizing the music, right? First, like the concept of normalization, it distorts the original thing but makes it louder. You know what I'm saying? It like distorts it a little bit, amplifies it. So I think if we normalize these like check-ins, it could create those waves of what we need right now. You know what I'm saying? Anybody else want to tap in on that? Or
The thing return to is just about this tension between safety and purpose. Like, Josh, to your point, the reason why, you know, Ty checks in and the family checks in and Hope checks in is because there's a purpose behind it, right? Like you can tell when someone is doing it out of a place of safety, you know, like I mentioned my dad, you know, because he had a drug problem, right? Like a lot of times he'd check in with me when he needed something, you know what I mean? When he wanted to borrow some money or whatever it may be, right? I could tell that was a safety mechanism because, you know, using was his way of feeling like, yo, I can blanket out the rest of the world and get in my own space, right? And that's the tension that we often find ourselves in. So to your point of your question about creating spaces where we can feel safe, it's about how do we make that mindset shift and how do we play on purpose, right? A lot of us are trying to play not to lose in life. Then we might get to a point where we're playing to win, but now how do we play on purpose? Once we play on purpose, the relationships become organic. It's not about, you know, I got to figure this out or that out. Like, we can feel when somebody's real. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's, right, there's research and all these other things about, like, how we can do that, mirror neurons in our brain, can pick up on other people's neurons and all this other stuff. But all that to say is, like, you can feel when somebody's real. And because you can feel when somebody's real, it's also possible that that you can create those spaces. The reality too though is that being vulnerable doesn't feel always safe. And you might get hurt and you might get broken, but are you willing to take that step and put yourself out there so that you can actually, who knows, it might be, even if you get hurt, it might be one of the best growing experiences for you.
I'm curious, how many folks in the room are like either recently graduated or still in high school, or you know what I mean, just young? Stand up. I'm put y'all on the spot. Just like fresh out of high school, or currently in high school, or even in college. Boy, I know I'm looking dead at you right now. Somebody out of line right now, right? So, one, a round of applause for them. Thank you for being in this. A round of applause. You guys can say. I'm not gonna put you in that spot. But I'm just curious, like, right, for young men, it took. I still have no idea what I'm doing, right? I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. Still trying to figure out how to handle and manage emotions. Still trying to figure out how to navigate relationships, right? All of these things that I'm still in process of trying to figure out. And I'm a 48-year-old rapping grandpa. Imagine that, right? But I'm curious, right? So, for keeping in mind the young men in the room, but also keeping in mind everybody in the room, like what advice would you give to someone who doesn't know where to start?
I would say, when you say doesn't know where to start, in relation to
this,
everything
that we've talked about so far.
Yeah.
The check-ins, the mental health, the navigating the confusion and frustration in the relationships, the things that those voices, right? We talked about the impeccable with your word, right? Ty, right? The conversation that you have with yourself about yourself all the time. You struggle with that. I struggle with that. Still, yo man, nah, you're not stupid. You're good.
Right.
I mean, look at you. You know what I mean?
I think first and foremost, be mindful of how you talk to yourself. And then also, and I don't know. I think for everyone in the room, know that we are deserving of the most optimal life. And I think because of we're deserving, of the most optimal life. And I think, we hustle culture, grind culture is so toxic, and because we're in this world of AI and we only show highlights and things of that nature, we get infatuated with end result. Know that it's important and valuable to be present, and the journey is really the process. The journey is the real value, is the jewel. And I mean that. I know that sounds like some Disney, type stuff. You know what I mean? But it's very real, because we just get caught up, and it's very easy to, social comparison and things of that nature. But if you could just be present and know that you are right on time, and that the quality of life is not dependent upon your zip code. Try to stay away from struggle Olympics, especially if you come from a certain background. You know what I mean? I used to wear, like, where I came from. I'm from AG, I'm from Arbor Glen. I was in Boston, you know what I'm saying? And by the time, I wore like a badge. Everybody thought, man, I'm from the Jets, you know what I'm saying? I did all that stuff, right? And I think that was just a mechanism. And now I'm in this place of thriving. But my first entry into thriving, I had such a difficult time with peace that I was waiting for the shoe to fall. Like I'm living in this really nice house, really nice neighborhood, and I was like, yo, man, what's waiting for the bullshit to, you know what I'm saying? And it was so toxic, you know what I mean? Because I didn't feel that I deserved that, you know what I mean? And so I wore this struggle like with a badge of honor, man, and it was so whack. You know, so just know, man, you are deserving of the most optimal life. And if you can tell yourself that, really plant those seeds, man. That's what I would say to everyone in the room, particularly the young people, man, that you are deserving, and that can go a long way. It can go a long way, because if I knew what I knew then now, I like where I'm at, but shoot, I can only imagine, where I would be. You know what I mean? So yeah. Woo.
There's a really basic one, which is just, this one's obvious, but like, just put the device down. Honestly, just get out for a walk. Like, just get outside. Don't listen to music. Don't just go out and have peace. Just go find a place and sit and employ some of the breath techniques. Like, do that stuff. Give yourself a moment of peace. We don't give ourselves moments of peace. I need to tell myself this. Like, this isn't for like y'all. I'm like going, I need to give myself moments of peace. Like, it's hard, especially like you're all highly functional, engaged individuals, running organizations, doing things. Like, you're always doing a million different things. And like when you're in that moment, you're just like running on momentum. You need to find times to stop. You need to. You'll burn yourself the hell out, and then you'll be in a problem spot. So like, put the device down, put the music down, put everything down. Like, give yourself peace.
Even if you don't want to.
Peace.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't have time. Like, of course you have time.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was advice on for folks who might not know where to start.
Back in what Ian's saying, but it's the same thing. Like, the same way we treat a lot of stuff that are not as important as ourselves, as our temple, as our body. The way you treat a vehicle, when you change the oil, refuel the gas tank, change the filter, on an AC at home, we have to really take that to heart and literally like take care of ourselves, take care of everything. Like, small things. Like, I learned, I think it was like 2 months ago, I learned like something random where it was like, oh, if you elevate your feet while you're sleeping, it helps the blood flow, circulation, etc. And I've slept that way since. It's gonna help me. Like, my girl like, you're like a vampire. Help the blood. So it's like, I'm blood with it. It's like, why wouldn't you want to, help your body and nourish your body the same way you would maintain a vehicle and all the stuff that I think we generally really take for granted a lot. It's very cliche to say, but it's real life. It's real life.
Hey, Chach, you mind if I?
No.
So as far as advice, you got a very successful podcast, Public Mission, right? You're probably the youngest on the panel. Can you give some advice about persistence? And I think maybe the younger generation wants things like immediately, like right away. And to build the audience you have, that takes persistence. You're putting out content, you're getting 10 views maybe in the beginning, and 2 likes versus where you're at now.
Yeah, I would say, great question. I would say it's definitely about your intention, right? What is the purpose? What's the intention behind what you are doing, right? If you're just trying to seek views, if you're just trying to seek money, then there's plenty of ways to do it. Like if I was just doing this for that point of reason, then there's 1,000 ways. Like right now, if we want to really go viral, all 4 of us can go outside, each pick a car and just take a shit on top of the roof of the car. And then we film it.
Let's go. One time.
And it goes viral overnight. And people gonna be talking about, these 4 dudes walking around, robbers, they took a shit on the car, one was white, like, what's going on? What's going on? It's like, beautiful magic. You become like famous overnight. It's like, oh, so you can obtain that. And it's a gift and a curse for the society that we live in right now, where it is attainable. You have the world in your pocket,
But then you gotta keep shit.
but then you gotta keep become that person. You know what I'm saying? You can become that person. And it's like, it's sad. Like I remember, I don't know if you guys remember, there was this guy. He was viral, famous. He Gotti, and he was like laughing, and he had this thing So he was like a viral meme years ago, like one of the original OG memes. And I saw the dude probably like 5-6 years ago, like walking around Vegas, like asking for money. And I'm like, oh shit, this is the reality. Where people don't realize, like you think like the views and all this stuff, like a million followers is not $1 million. Like it's not at all. You can't pay rent with that. Like there's a reality in life that you have to really face. So I would say you have to, aside from being consistent, because with consistency, people are always gonna remember you no matter what. 'Cause like I remember that's the guy that never gave up. Like he always kept doing that. But also, what's the intention with what you're doing? Like what's the purpose? Is it because you wanna be impactful? Do you wanna influence people? Do you wanna teach people? Does it make you happy? Or are you just trying to be like somebody else, but you're not really trying to be yourself? So I would say that that's the number one advice I always give people, especially young people that approach me, you know, because it's overnight success doesn't happen, but it's like, are you prepared for that? Because people say that, but it's like, do you know what comes with that? Like, you know, you can have a shirt that, you know, you have a shirt brand. He's like, I want my shirt brand to go viral. He's like, okay, your shirt brand went viral tomorrow, but do you have the capacity to drop 1,000 shirts? You only have 10 shirts. So it's like, why do you want it to go viral if you can't even sell the 1,000+ million+ views you got from that shirt? It's like, you have to move with the proper intention. And once you move with intention and you make it clear to those around you, especially, I feel like you'll always make it far, you know. But definitely, you know, if you want to go viral, go outside right now.
I have one specifically for you, Coach, because I know you talk so much about like development. What do you think holds men back from fully stepping into the next version or the best version of themselves?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like a desire for safety. I mean, we learn to put on an armor, and as we get older, we keep putting on more and more layers because we're trying to feel safe. But at the core of who we are, we never get a chance to actually just let loose and be us. And so there's so many expectations. For instance, if you were considered quote unquote a good man, like you have to go 10 times as hard because people are like, oh, he's good, so you can't not be good. Because as soon as you're not good, then now you're not good anymore, right? And you have the expectations of fatherhood. You have the expectations of navigating your work life, right? You have the expectations of providing for your family. And because of these expectations, we just put on more and more armor, and we never get ourselves into a position where we figure out how do we actually ease that load, right? And again, it's all about us trying to crave safety or navigate this feeling of safety. And so, you know, the mindset shift, the small shift that has to happen is, again, going back to what I talked about earlier, purpose, right? You got to understand there's 2 cycles of performance. The first cycle, which is all about safety, is we see a problem, a threat, we get a fear, right? And so then we react to it, right? And we just keep doing that over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? The shift is, again, going to purpose. And what purpose is, you know what your purpose is. When you have some idea with a vision you want to create in life, then you are passionate about something. And then from that passion, you're able to create, right? That is where we have to make that shift. And that's all about being in conversation. That's about, you know, therapy. That's about getting coaching. It's about having an accountability group. That's about leaning into resources. Because the other thing I think that, you know, we talked about messaging earlier, the other message that I got as a young person growing up is like, you got to do it. Like, you can't rely on nobody else. It has to be you. You have to do the work. You have to do everything. You have to be the one who makes it happen. And if it's always about you, after a while you think like, yo, I can't ask for help. And that's what most of us end up in that situation where we're like, we can't ask for help because we've been told that it has to be us that do it, right? And so even the folks who showing up in this room, for every one of us, you know, I remember when I was growing up, I think around in the late 90s, as a deacon at my church, they sat me and a couple other guys down and said 2/3 of you will be dead or in jail by the time you're 25, right? And so if that's the stat, at least in my community that I was here, and I can imagine if I was here in Providence to some degree too, right? Like you understand that, dang, I don't want to be dead and I don't want to be in jail. So for most of us, I'm sure we know a lot of guys who are dead or in jail because of, you know, the environment we grew up in. So for the ones who weren't dead or in jail, now we feel like we got to go extra hard because our boys didn't make it. right? And then we end up with what's called survivor's remorse, right? Where we're always walking around like, damn, my boy didn't make it, but I'm about to go out here and do it. And then we leave behind all these things. I left behind my whole hood, you know what I mean, and moved up to Rhode Island because I was, you know, getting away from my own traumatic things, you know what I'm saying? And so all that to say is like, we have to start to make that shift into how do we live from a place of purpose again, you know? How do we understand what our purpose is? How do we understand what our passions are, and then we can be able to create.
Oh, I got one for you. So I know you're a master at reframing things.
I'm sorry, say it
You've
again?
been a master at reframing things.
Thank you.
You always have been. And you talk a lot about different types of wealth. You are.
He just wanted to compliment.
One more time. Any of you who didn't hear me in the back.
Nah, I didn't hear it.
But so you've been vocal about, you talk about different types of wealth.
Yeah.
Why is it important, especially for men, to expand and reframe how we define success?
I think it's related to what Colin just said. There's a lot of social pressures, especially for men, to be a provider, to go out and get it. It's very, you know, compounded with just the current social landscape, and part of that is we target the financial aspect, you know, and external validation. You know what I mean? And that is a very that is not the strongest foundation, because if you don't get that, it's not sustainable. If you don't get that, right? If you don't get that job, if you don't get those awards and sort of those things, you see yourself, you know, as less than, devalued. There's just so many, the byproduct of stress and everything like that. But if you sort of reframe and recognize that there's other aspects to leverage and find value in, right? Like the quality of your relationships, how are you managing your time, you know, your mental health, your physical health. I think for me, man, you know, I work out, and really it's because I want to be there for my kids, you know what I mean? Like I want to be one of those active dads and whatnot, right? And so that's I think there's value in that. The quality of my relationships, who are the people that I'm nurturing into me, I see value in, checking in on and things of that nature. I think all those things are important. And so, you know, I was reading somewhere about the scoreboard, you know, and so if the scoreboard is just fixated on, you know, your salary and, you know, how, the awards, or even, you know, even more vanity laced, right? How many likes I have, how, you know what I mean? Like now, if I post, I'll like my own shit. You know what I mean? You know, right? 'Cause it's taboo. You know what I'm saying? I'm really like that. You know what I mean? But I think that, like that, and it's so funny when I go into these schools and do talks and things of that nature, I tell them to do that because I see it with our young people, and now more than ever with the onset of AI and all this stuff, the way our distortion of how we view ourselves, we have to be intentional. And so even those vanity matrix, man, those vanity metrics really can, it's almost, it can be an arrested development. So you have to really, you know, kind of reframe and expand the scope of where you see value in your life.
It's difficult to do it, right? Especially like with social media, with content. How many hoopers in here? How many hoopers? No half hands. Come on. Hoopers, right? On a ball court, you hit a shot, you're in the guy's ear. You see that? Nice, like that, right? But we don't do it. We don't do it on like our social media. We don't. Right. So I think that's an important piece to like remember for us to like give ourselves those flowers too. It's critical, right? Yeah. It goes back to that voice, that inner voice, right? And impeccable with your word. I wanted, so earlier when you introduced yourself,
Yeah.
right, you left out.
I know.
No, hold on, but
No, man,
Vic pointed out,
Yeah.
you left out a very important piece, right?
Yeah.
But so I got a question for you guys.
Yeah.
All right, based on that, it's easy for us to define ourselves by what we do, right? And as a lifelong freelance creative, right? That's built, you literally built your plane while you fly it, and created space for others to do what you do. How do you like keep you separate from what you do? How do you separate you from the things that you do?
Yeah, I don't know if I do a good job with it. I mean, it's hard, like, as an only child and a serial freelancer and entrepreneur, like, it's just been me. And so everything that I have done, it's been part of who I am. It's hard not to absorb that identity into who you are. And it's like, honestly, it's taken until we started talking about this, like, the past 6 months that I've realized that actually it's been unhealthy for me to constantly define myself based on those identities. And I actually have been trying systematically through therapy. See, you can do it. Okay, I started.
Any
And it's good.
therapists in here that could connect with a Cape Verdean 48-year-old?
But like to try to find ways to honestly strip away, much like that armor you were talking about, like those ideas of identity, because like I can attach myself as anything really like a father or a photographer or executive director. I said another title and to define myself as those things. But if I can't sit in a room and just be like, who's he? Like all that stuff goes away tomorrow. Lose a job, lose positions, lose things. You can lose relationships. Who am I? And I need to be able to start to try to be at peace with who that person is. And it's hard. It's very self-effacing. So like, how do I manage that? Like, with difficulty. Because it takes a lot of time, and especially when you love what you do. I think it's even harder. If you hate your job, you're like, shit, I stamp my ticket, I'm out 9 to 5, I'll see you tomorrow, I'll see you never, who cares? But I love everything that I do, and I love all these identities that I've accumulated. But I need to know who I am when I'm not those things. So it's I'm not gonna lie, like I haven't fixed it, I haven't solved the equation.
That's why we're all here. All right, so before I open it up for the audience for some Q&A, I have a couple very, very important quick questions, right? One, who do you call when you're overwhelmed? When the stress is too much to bear, who's that call?
I call not call, but if I'm around her, probably my girl, just the probably direct line of contact if I'm with her, spend the most time with her. But at times it's been like my mother sometimes. And I feel like because I see myself a lot in her, aside from the fact that I look like her a lot, I just see myself like in the way that she can kind of stonewall and kind of hold in emotions sometimes. When real shit's happening, instead of her addressing it directly, she kind of like moves around it. So I feel like I kind of reach out to her to kind of get her take on this, because I feel like she'll kind of like understand me a bit more, and it's been effective. Or she'll cry with me, like whatever the case may be or necessary. But those would be probably the two people for me.
Right, co-sign.
Cosign.
I have a friend, my friend Marilyn, who I call. She helps me with just navigate certain choices, and things of that nature. So yeah, my friend Marilyn.
It's interesting. All women.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Like, I would echo, like, yeah, that's my default, wife as well. Like, but at the same time, I'm trying to be better about reaching out to like male friends. I'm getting better at trying to have better relationships with and being in those spaces, because like they're gonna bring me something very different. You know what I mean? And good and bad. But I'm trying. I'm not there yet. Once again, like in process. Like I feel bad I don't contact you enough. Right? We always try to connect. It's like
My number hasn't changed.
I
in
know.
35 years. One last speed one. One song,
one song on your playlist that's your go-to when you're trying to get your mind back.
Alright, my song, Just a Piece.
And we're gonna send that to everybody too, as long as you register.
Perks.
You know what I mean?
Tough one, man. And so, Jeezy is from the area where I'm from. Yeah, so people say I look like Jeezy. They're like, look, Jeezy. My sister swear her and Jeezy used to hit the clubs. Before it used to be Lil J. But there's a song called Get Your Mind Right, which is just get your mind right. Let me talk to him, right? Like that's that when I'm ready in the gym, or I'm like, that's the one I usually go to. And then he has some newer joints with DJ Drum with a vibe with, but that's usually the one that turn me on.
I mean, stereotypically is always for me, or typically for me, it's been a lot of times. Can't Tell Me Nothing, the Kanye West song by Kanye West. I feel like that's like the greatest like hip hop song of all time. Like that song is crazy, but it varies sometimes. Like to be honest, sometimes now I'll circle back to like classic, like these classic quirky like white pop songs. So like revisit them and study them more than I'm used to back then. And I'm like, damn, these lyrics actually like this is they talking some shit. Like
There's a lot of those.
Like Taylor Swift, Carly Rae Jepsen, like they got it okay. You know what I'm saying? So I've been doing that recently, but yeah, Can't Tell Me Nothing. Kanye was like always one.
Yeah, you're not. Mine's really like. I listen to like weird EDM.
It's
It's
all
like
good.
straight
It's all
cynical.
right.
I don't like lyrics.
Did you hear that? Whoever's ringtone that
Yeah,
was?
It's all there's something about like methodical electronic stuff which is almost like chant-like. It's repetition, it's meditative. It reminds me of just kind of being transcendent, and I almost dissolve into that space. I don't want to have. I mean, I love lyrical stuff a ton, but like, yeah.
What's the song? I'm with you.
It's an artist. Yeah, FX Twin's my favorite. Like, yeah, with like selected ambient work stuff like that.
We'll send that.
Yeah,
to
I'll type it.
if you register. But since nobody picked one of my songs, it was great to have you guys. God bless you. Good night.
Kill the radio.
No, so I really appreciate it. We're gonna shift the focus a little bit. Again, it's 7:48 and 36 seconds right now. And I want to be mindful of time, but also, is it all right if we spill over?
Yeah, I think I'll keep it.
All right, so we can spill over a little bit, but folks are bound by, if your wife's like mine and change the locks and don't leave, then feel free to leave. But we're gonna open it up.
Yes, sir.
Please, again, right? We got a big room, so try to, if you want to share a reflection, just try to keep it brief. If you want to ask a question, it'd probably be preferred if you direct it at one of the panelists. Just so we can be mindful of time and give everybody an opportunity to speak. Sound good? Mm-hmm. All right, so again, we're gonna just keep it like popcorn style. You can raise your stand, mic right there if you wanna.
What's up, y'all? My name is Mike. I'm in the school of Huss. So he did the art with him and he introduced me to this. So I appreciate this whole thing, and this is really dope to be a part of. So one, I think all y'all deserve a round of applause for being here too. I don't necessarily have a question, but there's a lot of things that y'all talked about that brought up some things for me too. So I just figured I'd just share some of that too, because I've gone through my own mental health journeys too. A lot of us have carried a lot of different things, and Carlin talked about armor, continuing to put on armor and whatnot. But one of the things that I thought about while I was listening to that and some of the journey I went through was a backpack, right? All of us have these different things in our lives that we carry, and just like in school, we have these different subjects, right? But some of us went to school and the history books were like that thick, you know what I mean? So
With the book covers.
with the book cover, with the paper bag book cover. So sometimes we take these different subjects and sometimes we take these books and we just keep adding it into the backpack, right? We just keep putting more pressure on our back and it's pulling us back down to the ground. But one of the things that I found when I wear this backpack is when I'm around those I really love, those who I need to be the hero for, you know, my nephews specifically is what I think about, the backpack comes off and I don't feel that pressure. You know, we just continue to do what we gotta do for them without thinking about us at all, or our emotions, our pains, our passions, really, it's just them, right? We're just there for them. And I think one of the things that has helped me see that is that I can't overestimate the importance of nothing, right? You talked about just put the phone down. Just go and do something, go for a walk, enjoy the sky, whatever it is. We overestimate that a lot. And it helps me really understand that I can't complain about all the things that I'm going through when that's what I wanted to do, right? You can't complain about the food on your plate if your goal was to eat. That was one of the things that I had learned. But I had a really good mentor, and this mentor wasn't somebody that I found from school. It was actually somebody from my job. And they once told me that I shouldn't try to become a person of success, but try to be that person of value. And that will pull the pressure away from you. But once we start to see the knowledge that we gained from that value and how we acted in those experiences, you know, we should really release that pressure with our partners, with those who you feel heroes with, right? And give them that guidance and that knowledge that you've gone through too. And when we, you know, if we don't, we understand that fools will continue to multiply when the wise man doesn't talk, right? We have to be able to communicate things with anybody we can really speak with because they are listening. People do listen to you. We have value and they know that. So we should be able to feel free to share that with them. And I encourage you to do that. This is a great platform to do that. I appreciate you brothers and you brother for being able to do that too.
Thank you for that. Yes, and definitely thank you, Todd. Thank you to all of you brothers for opening the space and for bringing into it everything that you have. And you know, each of you, like just knowing you individually, truly are pillars in this community. So just thank you also for standing tall in all the ways that you do, and for being here for all of us to kind of be able to hear more of what it takes to hold that pillar up. My question is really like y'all talked about, you know, checking in and how necessary that is, and touched on how like you had to grow up, you know, sooner than you expected, and I think a lot of us can relate to that. I definitely was a kid who, you know, saw my mom struggling with alcoholism, had brothers in and out of prison. At like 10, I had to go, okay, the kid stuff is over. I guess I gotta be here for my little sisters now. One of the first things we lose in that as men is articulating our needs. And I think that's something that like today, even as we talk about what we talk about, right, the hardest thing to get to still, even if you get checked in on, is like knowing what our needs are, let alone being vulnerable enough to say to someone else, this is what I need. And we call our homegirls and our women in our lives, because maybe, but we don't talk to each other. Hoping not, we have an amazing relationship. That's my brother, like we can tap in, top of the top, what's going on, debating hip hop, whatever, but also, you know, real life stuff too. But I don't think I've ever said, oh, this is what I need to you, by anything. So I guess, and I'm a director to you, Chachi, you know, because you, Pillar, you leading this, you setting the tone here. Can you comfortably share in this room, and I love the Rhode Island point, we're a small state, we're a big family, like we're all connected by at least 1 degree of separation to even be in this room here, right? So like you need something for real, I don't even know you, brother, but I probably know enough people to say, we need to help you out, you know what I'm saying? Like, is there something you can like articulate, and if anyone wants to follow it up, but like what anyone who knows you, sees you out, is there something you need?
Yeah,
brother?
absolutely. I need a therapist.
Okay.
Okay. I've been in search for a long time, and so I think about this, but I also need a lot.
Yeah.
Right? One thing that I recently learned that it blew my mind is that I had the ability to negotiate a salary. Who was hiding the secret information from us all these years? Right? And I didn't know that was normal, right? And I had to get coached up to be able to be like, you know what I mean? Almost a fear to ask, like if I went to my job and was like, yo, I need $10,000, I need $15,000, I need $20,000 more a year. They're gonna say, you know something? You have the audacity to ask for that? Right. Sorry, we're gonna let you go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a fear of that. So a lot of the things that we don't ask for is because they're not the fear of hearing no, which ultimately it is. It's the fear of hearing no, but it's also the subconscious fear of like, are they gonna get offended because of what I need? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It happens in relationships, it happens in even the relationships with like, you know, that I have with my children. Yeah. You know, those negotiations. Yeah. It's like a fear of like, am I gonna offend them? Am I gonna like, you know what I mean, steer them the wrong way because of what I need when I know that I'm the one that's supposed to have it all figured out. Right. I'm the one that solves the problems, right? But yeah, I think I have so many unpacked issues from, you know, it's 15 years since my father died. I still haven't processed that. I still, you know what I mean? I was, you know, past relationships and navigating the space. I'm in a crazy, my job right now, I work in city government, but I'm not elected, right? I'm appointed. So I'm in the space that if the mayor happens to lose next year and another mayor comes in, the new mayor could be like, let's get rid of Chachi. Right. If this mayor at any point has a bad day and he's like, let's get rid of Chachi. Right? I'm just there. But also, I have to be apolitical. Cause I can't share, my whole life, my whole music career has been on me sharing my thoughts and feelings about the world, about what's happening politically across the globe, about, you know, justice. And I can't speak on any of that in the role I'm in. So I'm muzzled. But I know I have to be there, because if not me, then there's nobody there to help move the needle and do all the things I do to put out a fire from inside a fire. So it's a place that just kind of strips away at you. You know, it's been 2 years now, and I've been in this space trying to figure out how do I exist and stay there. So yeah, therapist, if anybody's in the house.
Just sent you a text.
I'm not even in the point of
All right, I got something kind of to piggyback on everybody. And something that you said that hit home, maybe because we're closer in skin color. I am Dominican, so got your beat on the tan. Yes, I am. Well, what it comes down to is like what you said, hey, being like a good friend. And as men, I mean, we've all grown up that like, it comes down to like, we don't really say much. I ask you how you're doing, or how's the wife, and you're just like, I'm okay, right? Or it's good, and that's kind of like what it drops. Even like deep stuff. And I don't think we're necessarily bad friends, but obviously we want to be better friends. So my question to you, or anybody here, is what are some things you're saying or bringing up to reach out, or when you reach out, rather than like, hey, how's it going? But is there something like a more meaningful message that you're putting out there or speaking about to get a potential conversation going? Without a lot of pressure too, of course, because we all got lives.
Oh, it was you.
Oh, no, to whoever. I said to the panel.
I have a quick thing, which is it started for me. It started with honestly realizing that I think I was only giving people in my relationships like 75%, and I didn't even have the consciousness that was taking place. I didn't realize that I was keeping people just a little bit out. And once I finally had that recognition, it was like the willingness to be vulnerable and accept the fact that not everyone's always going to like embrace it, but not being scared to do it, and being like, you know, like y'all speak to people a lot. Like I hide in the background all the time. This is weird as hell for me. This is I I'm used to being able to put people on positions like, you'll go speak, I'll film it, duck off. You know, so, but being in that position to feel more vulnerable and having someone see that, acknowledge it, usually opens the door to like, all right, now you can share. You know, and once I've done that, I've noticed that my relationships have flourished more than I ever expected. Because immediately it opens them up. They're like, oh, you're gonna go there? Okay. And that's been really freeing, at least for me. You know.
I think when I hear your question, for me it's like just asking those open-ended questions. Yo, how can I show up for you? You know, me and Ty, you know, Huss, you know, we go back, but you know, I didn't even share this, so this is gonna be so. You know, but there was a gap. We weren't speaking. We didn't speak for a long time. You know what I mean? And you know, we rekindled. We had a really solid foundation. You know, I used to go to his house, you know what I mean? And we used to hang out, you know. Earlier on in my career, he was very instrumental in the marketing and videography and content and stuff like that. And we had a personal relationship, and then it kind of, you know, went left for a number of different reasons, some my fault, whatever. But, you know, then we rekindled, maybe I would say probably like in the last year, you know, something like that. And immediately, the nature of our conversations have changed, just a dramatic, you know, he's matured, I've matured, and just the intentionality. Yo, anything you need, what are you working on? Or just how are you? You know what I mean? And yeah, you know, those are like really small, short questions, but I think there's something about the humanity, the level of humanity in your relationships that you can sort of infer that, yo, you know what, he's genuine, you know what I mean? It's not just, you know, and keep it pushing. And I appreciate him, and I appreciate our relationship now even more than back then, you know? So I because of that sort of, he's seeing me, I'm seeing him, there's no expectations, you know what I mean? And you know, the humanizing of the relationship is super important. I don't know if that answers your question, but I just think right now and where we're at, humanity is so secondary, tertiary, you know what I mean? Because everything is so transactional, filtered, so humanity gets lost. And you know, if you can create a space where you see that person right where they're at, for who they are, no judgment, I can bet that, you know, a positive outcome will happen.
Yeah, just to add to that too, man, I appreciate that. I think, you know, I believe that to change the world, we got to change ourselves. Like if we just focus on ourselves, then the world's going to change around it, you know. All of this is based on what I needed. So, you know, I'm not self-centered, you know. What I know, what I go through, a lot of you go through. So instead of trying to figure out how to be perfect for the world, I'm figuring out like what's perfect for me. And then it's just gonna spread out. You know, this situation, like I jumped on board with it because I need this. You know, so I put my effort into it, and I know, you know, the benefits of what that would be. You know what I mean? So I started educating myself. I started reading. Like I keep pushing reading a lot because you can have as many conversations with people and watch as many videos you want, but there's just something about the words in those books. And you know, for a long period of time, they didn't want us reading, so that's a lot, right? And then I just got hip to being aware and intentional. You know, I'll check in on Chachi, I'll check in on Hope, because I want to be checked in on too. You dig what I'm saying? So like, what you want to be or become or the world you want, you gotta do it. You know, and then once you start to learn about ego and how it really doesn't play a significant role, you let that go and you just don't care. Like I'll talk to anybody about anything. It doesn't matter. Like that's my life, that's my journey. Everything that can be embarrassing or hurtful, it made me who I am right now. I'm proud. I beat my chest with that. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, as far as being vulnerable, you should be proud, like because whatever that thing is, you survived it. You know what I'm saying? You're here, you beat it. You know what I mean? So when folks ask how you doing, whatever, like take it as an opportunity and share it. And it works both ways because I love when people open up to me because they feel comfortable. We talked about spaces of comfort. You know what I mean? These conversations are great. I mean, I have these one-on-ones with Hope and Chachi. Like, I see different sides of them. Like, you know what I mean? There's also a little bit, let me just not show my ass too much, but like, me and Hope on the phone going crazy in the house. Like, I'm like, yo, I can't wait to get some of this put on speakerphone and share with the world. But that's what it is, and that's the same thing as, that moment, being in the present. That shit, Mike, what you talked about, that's everything. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. When we're thinking about the past, you know what I mean? There's the stress and the depression. When we're focused too much on the future, there's your anxiety. When you literally stop thinking, that's where your joy, your bliss, and your love is. Mm-hmm. So.
I want to add one thing just because something I feel, and you said it, such an important piece. Mm-hmm. So confidence is always built on repetition, right? And so whenever you are having a bad day, you have to realize immediately you're 100% undefeated against every other bad day you've ever had. Mm-hmm. And have confidence that this day will not beat you. You know what I'm saying? Every single bad day you've ever had, you're undefeated. Aaron, you're undefeated against every bad day.
Fantastic.
So the next time a bad day starts rearing its head, you know what I'm saying? Mike Tyson that thing, you know what I mean? Like, I got this, right? Lon Ray.
So I'll be quick, but I think one of the things that can't be understated, I want to invite everybody here to understand that each of you have a superpower yourselves. And that superpower that you have can make other people better. So what do I mean by that? I'm here because Huss, and round of applause to Huss. I've known him probably 10, 15 years, can't even remember when we first met, but he stopped me outside and he saw me rushing someplace. And he said, hey, Lon Ray, I'm doing this Men of Value event and I want you to be there. And he just asked me a quick question. He goes, what's up? You seem like you have to go. I said, no, I'm working on a big deal. Some of you know, I'm working on, real estate developments and I'm doing some stuff in Holyville. I'm the only person that looks like me in the city that has a development that, is anything near where I'm going. Nobody's done it before, right? And I don't need to say the numbers or anything like that, but it'll make history throughout the nation. But you guys,
we celebrate those wins.
Thank you. But I tend to not ask people for things. I'm the giver. So if you come to me, I got you. I'll show up here, I'll do this, I'll give that. So in that moment, you just being you and just being authentic, I know you as Huss. So being authentic Huss, I walked away from that and I was like, man, I felt so good. Bobby, Aya, he knows the deal I'm doing, he knows some stuff that happened, you're trying to get financing, and I'm doing stuff I won't even say that, but you guys just being individually who you are, remember that, anytime I see John Hope, the love I get from you and the positivity, I walk away with that. I've never told you that. I've never told Chachi that. I've never told Aya that. I've never told DBL is what I call them. I've never told, there's 1,000,001 people that are here, but it's just you being you. So keep showing up being you, and our communities need us to be good first, ourselves, before we can be good for the communities, right? So this event, it's a great event, because if, I've been through stuff in 2-3 years and nobody even knows, my boys know, because I'm authentic with them. That doesn't hide stuff from them. These are my two guys right here, I'm so proud of them. Right? I brought them to this event so that they know they don't have to be tough with that. Right? I've laid the foundation that they can talk to me about whatever. I don't judge them, I'll be there for them. I ride and die for them no matter what. Justin Case has taken their Christmas pictures since they've been young, so he knows. That's the relationship we have. My mindset is based on family. That's my foundation. Everything else I built from there. I had a different relationship with my dad. There are different relationships that have been talked about.
and I say this for people that have young children. My relationship with my dad is I saw him provide, I saw him doing the cooking, I saw him sometimes doing the cleaning if my mom was dying, I saw him doing whatever he had to do to provide for us. He was always there, and when my boys were born, he gave me one word of advice, 2 words. He said, be there. That's all he said, be there. And I've heeded that for everything they've done, and I hope when I'm out on this earth, they'll say my father was always there. And keep that, you know, if you have young children, just be there. Because this world sometimes doesn't want us to achieve our excellence. And you being there is helping your kid to achieve their excellence. So that's all I gotta say. I thank you guys for being you. That's all I wanted to say.
What's up, everybody? Chip Doe. Yeah. Appreciate y'all for having this forum. My question I could say is probably to Hus, Chachi, John Hope. Just a little selfish in the sense that I think it's dope because we all can say that 20 years ago, we were still us. We were still doing this. Hus was on the video, Chachi and Hope were on the stage, and then just created a lot of great memories. So my question for y'all is, what words of encouragement would you have to people as they age and evolve and still have to kind of tap into that value? Because just by default, I'll be real, like a lot of our trajectory, like you were alluding to the video that Kingston could pull up from 11 years ago. Like a lot of stuff that we did and we know that game value has to be kind of be intentionally dug up. You know what I mean? We're kind of competing against the microwave generation. We're competing against everything's kind of like, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I'd be like, I gotta do it real. Like that's tiring, you know what I mean? Like I said it, now I gotta put the words to it, I gotta cut, I gotta edit. You gotta like relearn and retool. But you already knew what you did was dope. You already knew it had value. You knew that the foundation was there. You knew that the throwbacks are phenomenal. But as we're still staying tapped in and we're still staying plugged in because we still have so much more value, what I would want to know is how do y'all keep yourselves charged in to keep going and not feel defeated? And how do you just keep recharging your battery as life's happening, as adulthood's happening? Because, you know, like I know me personally, my kids are 25 and 19. You know, it's like life's a little different. So what do y'all do now at this phase as creatives, as curators, to just not lose who you are and still reinvent that, to still let the world know who you is?
My answer's super easy. What's that? Charge more money. Like honestly, like that whole concept, like so for years and years and years, when you create art, we have a room full of artists here, right? We're all artists, we all create art. And when it comes time to like sell the art, we only sell like the finished product. We only sell the art. We don't sell the countless studio sessions and the years and years of practice and failures and the times that you shifted from MP3s to MySpace to CDs out of the, you know what I mean, the little slim jewel case CDs to MP3s and Spotify's and all of these other things now, how all of it changes. But the only thing that you got is you, right? And so, I don't know. I don't really still believe that people even listen to my shit, but for some reason people will book me to perform. And once I learned that I could negotiate a salary, I also realized that I can negotiate, you know what I mean? Because typically somebody will be like, oh, I'd love to have you come and perform. You know what I mean? How much do you charge? I'm like, how much do you got? You know what I mean? So I think it's about understanding that, you know, that concept, it gets greater later, and a lot of that has to do with the value that you place on yourself, and, you know, yeah, that.
I've been fortunate to, everything that I do is aligned with passion and purpose, you know, and creativity. I feel like we're all going to create in some way or not, and I've just been fortunate, you know, through video, animation design, and then more recently, Mauve, which feels real purposeful. So that's always given me that extra, energy to create. Like so I got Tie Works, right? That's my animation company, and I transitioned to a creative director where I'm just overseeing. I'm not on the keyboard and actually moving the keyframes no more. But for all this, I'm back editing. I haven't edited since 2007.
And killed it.
But that's passion driven. But if it was a client paying for that, I'm like, I got my team for that. I'm all set. But for this, like, I'm staying up late again doing it, and it's just that passion again, like. And I'm not too big for that. I don't care about the dollar amount or who the client is. Like, I was having a blast putting together that piece of art right there without AI.
Beautiful, beautiful. No AI.
And I knew how beneficial that would be, because that meant a lot. Because I initially started, thinking about Men's Health Month. You think about the negatives, you think about the, the suicides and the depression. And I'm trying to get this image to, showcase that. I'm like, while I'm doing that, I'm becoming sad. I don't want to do this shit. So I'm like, we already know that, right? Hope we talked about that. We had a conversation. We already know what we're up against. So like, we have the opportunity to shed light, lead it with love and passion. So it went from a miserable man with chaos in his head to a man in full bliss, and who don't love a sunlight with some birds flying, right? That's being in the moment. So like, when I was doing that, I don't know how much time went by, but it felt like 5 minutes. And that's because I was just locked in and aligned with, passion and purpose. And, if you can do that and also figure out how to keep everything financially stable, you're good to go.
I'll be quick, man. Yeah, I'm so happy that I'm celebrating 20 years as an artist, right? And I think for me, I knew early, probably like, in the teens when I came back from Atlanta, that, I didn't really care about fame or any of the vanity metrics. Like, I wanted to speak directly to my audience. And so, if you look at my numbers, they're not, but most recently I released an album, and I did it on, in an unorthodox way, didn't put it on streaming platforms. I did it direct to consumer, and I allowed them to determine the amount in this economy. And it was a gamble, but people purchased the album for $100, and I was really proud of that, and I made 46x than what I would have on streaming platforms. You know what I'm saying? Right? Because I knew earlier on, right, like that the music that I wanted to make was something that was independent of how many views and how many likes and things of that nature. I really wanted to, how can I impact and your quality of life? And I did not want to be a struggling artist. I wanted to create an opportunity for myself where the music can be the catalyst. And so, I was able to become a professor of hip hop, teach at universities, Roger Williams University, together. You know what I mean? I've been able to work for the Olympics and host and be a host for 16 seasons for Providence College, and start an organization and a business and all these things, right? And it allowed me for this sense of security, right? Because a lot of times what I would get from people who didn't understand what I was doing is, so what do you do? When are you gonna get a real job? Not knowing that I'm over here, I may not be famous, but my account, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I didn't really care about any of that stuff, and so I think for creatives, as you get older, and especially within hip hop where it's taboo to be older and things of that nature, I think it's just, find your core audience and speak directly to them, cultivate them if you're a creative, and they know your language. and just give them opportunity to connect. And I promise you, it sounds sort of romanticized, but it's so true. It's so true. Every time I drop merch, every time that I release a song, it's gonna be well received to my core audience. When I say THS, they know what THS is, right? You know, it's that whole shit. You know what I'm saying? Right? They know, you know, and it's because I've built a brand of trust and consistency that is independent of how many views, how many likes, or anything like that. I really never played that game. And so to some people, someone might say hope is irrelevant. To some, they're gonna know, oh yeah, he been, you know, been like that. And so I think to have that sustainability is to be consistent, to have, to be, allow for trust between you and your audience, and just, you know, operate from a place of passion.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And for anybody who is registered, we'll send a link for you to purchase that. Still No, I appreciate you so much, brother.
Can I jump off something you said as well? I mean, the other thing that you were addressing was this idea of it's evolution. I mean, like, you as an artist, you evolved and your platform changed, right? Like, as a professor, as a mentor, all those things, like, you're still being creative.
Right.
You know, so it's this idea, like, who you were 20 years ago isn't the person you are now, and that's fine.
That's okay.
That's acceptance, like, and moving on to those places, and like, because you're involved as a mentor, I mean, I do the same thing now, where like, you bring people up and their creativity sparks something in you.
Right.
You know, and you're like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll incorporate a little bit. We're like, oh, I would never think like that.
Right.
But I'm gonna celebrate you for doing it, and that's okay too.
Right.
And the other thing, at least for me in the creative space, that I'm trying to find is, you know, it used to always be the completion of the art, right? So I finish it, and the end product is the thing. You're like, cool. Am I cool? Validate me for my cool shit.
Right.
Like, everyone should be like, cool video, great picture.
Yeah.
And now what I realize is, like, if I'm in the studio, or I'm on set, or I'm working with a subject, or I'm doing an interview, that day, that moment with those people, or you in the studio, that relationship that you share with the people that you're creating that moment with, that matters just as much. And like, who cares where it ends up down the road?
Right, absolutely.
You've created something special in that place, and being able to be okay knowing that that has value unto itself is a thing where you can be like, well, I don't need to care about the outcome or the validation. If that comes, it comes.
It comes,
like,
yeah. Who cares?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because you already made that moment.
Yeah. Do not be attached to the outcome. Do not.
Hey,
not.
journey.
For time's sake, I wanna just kind of go back to, you know, young folks in the room, right? Young men in this room. I want to create space. If any of you have anything that you want to share, this is a twofold. Yeah, please.
I have a question. So, how I say this? Well, I kind of relate to what you said. You know, I love being creative. The hours go by when I'm, on the computer, making pictures and doing that type of stuff. And as an advocate, I've learned to speak for myself and say the call to actions and say, hey, social media is great for this, social media is harmful for these reasons, education needs this to happen. But when it comes to art, making it is one thing that I love to do. Sharing it is one thing that is terrifying, and that's something that I want to do next year. So, like, what advice do you have when it comes to sharing art for the first time? Something that's just terrifying.
What's your name?
Evan.
Evan, man, nice to meet you, and thank you for sharing that, man. And I would say simply, just do it. Put it out. Like there's something called I listened to a TED talk called it was about activation energy, and it's the energy between getting out of bed, right? Just getting out of bed is like the thing, right? Like just put it out. Like that, and that's it's difficult because I know, like I can tell, like there's sort of this reservation and things of that nature. But that first step is so important and so profound. And when you put it out, you know, celebrate that. Celebrate that, man. Yo, I did that. Right? And put it out again.
Yeah.
Just do not be attached to the outcome, but just put it out, because the archiving, the hoarding, right? I would say this, man. 7.5, 7.9 billion people on this earth. Someone is gonna rock with you.
Word up. Vic touched on an important point earlier, right? Is that millions of people are gonna like people shitting on the car. That's gonna go viral, right? But trust, there's other people. Every single day we wake up, right, we express art. We choose an outfit, we walk outside, some people are gonna be like, oh man, your outfit's fire. And some people are gonna be like, what the hell are you wearing? Right? And that's their choice.
Right.
To you, you have to be like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Here we go. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter. Some people are gonna love it, some people are gonna hate it, but it's the releases for you. It's the birds right there in the brain. You know what I mean? And we hold our art and we save it, and it occupies data in our brain, and it makes our brain move slow, just like a computer or a phone that got too many pictures in it. You gotta let it go so the creativity can continue to flow. Just let it go.
I say something to you. I call it fire and forget. Let it go and forget about how you feel about it. Forget about your scaredness about it. Fire and forget, just let it go. Think about, you know, what you did. Celebrate it like Hope said, but fire and forget, just let it go. And then fire again.
Are you gonna put it out on social media when you do put it out?
Yeah, I'm thinking of doing a documentary.
I'm going to do.
And so you have about 60 first likes to it. What is the Instagram? What is the page you're gonna put it out there? What's that social media handle? So I got this like is gonna come as soon as you put it out.
I didn't even make it yet.
It's all right doing now. Give your Instagram to Chachi and whoever registered.
No, but that's important. So, twofold, right? One, in establishment of community, right? Everybody here, please follow the Move page. Right? That's gonna be the space where we're gonna like create and have resources to those therapists that I need, right? And that hopefully we all need. But also for us to be able to share and help build with each other. There's gonna be opportunities for us to connect and build. This is one of. You know what I mean? So there's that, right? The establishment of community. The second thing, for the young men that stood up earlier, right? Currently fresh out of high school, still in high school or younger, please stand up again. Please. It's all good. All right, listen, no, look around you, all right? We are all here for you. Like, I had a conversation with my sons, you know what I mean? And my nephews know it. I might be the only man in their lives that want them to be better than me. You know what I mean? But I know for us, we want all of you to be way better than us. If there's anything that we could do as a community to make sure that you guys are off and running, right? You're off to college next year, Franklin Pierce. You're off to Johnson and Wales next year. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Okay. That's entering first year in college. Your success is way bigger than you. It's for everybody that came before you and everybody in this room that's supporting you. Just know that we're here as a community. So Move is also going to be a hub to support all of you young men as well. You know what I mean? You got all of us. We want you to be better, and we're going to help you get there. All right? Next call to action, right, is that this was half of the idea. You know what I mean? Anybody that knows me knows it's like I come over like, oh look at this big giant thing. But initially we wanted to do this, and we was gonna do a big we were gonna do the march, the Move March. The Move March, right? And we're still gonna do it, right? For men's mental health awareness, the connection of the physical health and the mental health is critical. What do we say? 8:30. 8:30. We walk in the boulevard. All right, we're marching down Blackstone Boulevard on Sunday, 8:30 in the morning. If you want to come and join us, bring the kids, bring the family. We're just gonna go ahead together and just walk that little 3-mile stretch down and back. grab some ice cream later to celebrate at Three Sisters. Right, we're gonna start on that end
Yeah.
and march our way down and march our way back. So that's the second half of this, right? But I just want to so much love to the panelists. Come up here.
Before I get out of here, I was here earlier, and everybody was hitting points. But all of y'all are my big brothers. I love all of y'all so much. I look up to y'all, you know what I'm saying? I can't even believe that y'all, you know what I'm saying? Like, not everybody from the streets and everybody from the hood really be doing things like this, you know what I'm saying? So, I love all of y'all. I was about to cry three different times, and then my man's right here, like, started talking about the autism thing. Was my son got, like, you know what I'm saying, he's at the low spectrum too, like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, and I had to leave, like, because I just felt weird, because I was about to break down. Like, I hit up Buzz. How many times I hit up, man, this man's right here is crazy. Like, I love this man right here. You know what I'm saying? The most powerful thing in the hood that you could be doing. Who's doing this? You know what I'm saying? And from where I came from, you know what I'm saying, the people I'd be around, it's like, who's really doing this? And I met him in the beginning, you know what I'm saying, and look what he's doing now. There was a space where I didn't hear nothing about him. But that space right there, sometimes you need that space, you know what I'm saying? Trees ain't loud when they grow. Woo. You know what I'm
Thank you for sharing, bro.
Boom. Mic drop moment, for real. But again, right? The connections that are here, the connections that are starting to establish here, right? The mentorship opportunities, you know, it's the beginning, you know. Again, to Huss, Erica, the whole family, you guys are just amazing, man. I just love it. You guys are like such a powerful force. I'm just so grateful that you guys just pour in every single thing that you guys do, and just know that we're also like supporting that, right? Man, I'm just excited. I am. I'm excited about this because it exceeded the expectations, and that's all because of all of you. Just continue to understand the value that we have. Do not feel like you're here by yourself. The mental health journey is a walk, and you don't have to walk by yourself. You know what I'm saying? You can walk with all of us on Sunday. You know what I mean? No, for real. And realize, really realize that, you know, you have everything that you need. God given you everything that you need to be successful. You know what I'm saying? And we gotta look sometimes and just understand, like, wow, man, we're so much stronger together. You know what I mean? On behalf of Men of Value, you know, thank you all so much. God bless you.